3 years after Marcus sat across from Julian in that coffee shop, barely covering rent on a $52,000 salary with $400 in savings, Marcus got laid off. A company-wide reduction, 20% of staff, his entire team. He received the news on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. in a 30-minute Zoom call with HR. By 10:35, his badge had been deactivated and his work email was gone. He sat in his apartment for a long moment, then he called Julian.
My first feeling wasn't panic. That surprised me. I ran through the numbers in my head. Emergency fund, $6,800. Monthly essentials, $1,900. Runway, 3.5 months before I'd need to touch investments. Severance, 6 weeks of salary, $6,000. Combined, I had roughly 5 months before any real financial pressure. I'd built the thing that was supposed to protect me from exactly this moment, and it was working.
When Marcus told him the news, Julian said, "How much runway do you have?" Marcus told him. Julian said, "Good. Then you have time to find the right next step, not just the first available one. That's the entire point of the emergency fund. You have options. Most people in your situation have no options. You do." That reframe, from crisis to options, changed everything about how Marcus approached the next 5 months.
During the job search, Marcus had something he hadn't had 3 years earlier: financial space. He wasn't desperate. He could be selective about applications. He could negotiate salary properly instead of taking the first offer out of financial panic. He could afford to interview at companies with longer timelines. The emergency fund wasn't just financial protection, it was negotiating leverage. Financial security changes your posture in every room you walk into.
2 months into the search, I started picking up freelance work, using the same skills from my old job, but for smaller companies that couldn't afford a full-time hire. My first freelance project, $1,200 for 2 weeks of work. Then a second project, $1,800 over 3 weeks. Suddenly, I wasn't spending my savings anymore. I was covering about 60% of my expenses through freelance income while still interviewing. Something clicked.
What Marcus discovered is what most people discover when they lose a job. Their skills have market value beyond their one employer. The employer had been paying for those skills. Other companies and individuals needed those same skills. The difference between employment and freelancing is packaging and sales, not capability. Most people have income potential that their single-employer relationship keeps them from ever accessing.
Income diversification is the personal finance concept most people don't consider until a crisis forces it. Relying on one employer for 100% of your income is in financial terms a highly concentrated position. A single stock portfolio that is 100% one company would be considered recklessly undiversified. A single employer income that is 100% one company is considered perfectly normal. The risk profile is similar.
Julian gave me the framework. Active income, you trade time for money. Salary, hourly work, freelancing. Passive income, assets generate money with minimal ongoing effort. Dividend, stocks, rental income, interest from bonds, royalties, digital products. Portfolio income, returns from invested capital, gains, dividends, distributions. The goal isn't to eliminate active income. It's to ensure that active income from one source isn't your only source of anything.
The most accessible side income strategies require no startup capital, only time and existing skills. Freelancing in your professional field, tutoring or teaching, consulting for smaller organizations in your industry, driving for rideshare or delivery platforms for immediate cash, selling digital assets, templates, photos, writing code that generate income repeatedly from a single creation. The internet has made the market for skills more liquid than at any point in history.
Elena had been selling design templates on Etsy for a year, a side project she'd started on Julian's recommendation. She'd created 20 templates over 2 weekends. By month 6, those templates were generating $300 to $600 per month without any additional work. The initial 20 weekends of creation had become a recurring passive income stream, not life-changing, but meaningful and completely disconnected from any client's decisions about her contract.
Digital products, templates, presets, ebooks, courses, software tools have near zero marginal cost after creation. The first sale requires the same effort as the 10,000th sale. This scalability is what separates digital passive income from service-based active income. A graphic designer selling their time earns once per hour worked. A graphic designer selling a template earns indefinitely from a single creative output.
Dividend investing as passive income, purchasing stocks of companies that regularly distribute a portion of profits to shareholders. The dividend yield on a stock, annual dividend, divided by share price, represents your cash return on the investment. A $20,000 portfolio with a 3% average dividend yield generates $600 per year, $50 per month, automatically, without selling any shares. As the portfolio grows, The dividend income grows with it.
Dividend reinvestment, automatically using dividend payments to buy more shares, accelerates compound growth. Over decades, reinvested dividends account for a significant portion of total market returns. Investors who take dividends as cash-spending money sacrifice the compounding engine. Those who reinvest allow dividends to generate more dividends, a self-reinforcing growth mechanism that becomes increasingly powerful over time.
Marcus accepted a new job offer 4 months after the layoff, a $67,000 salary, $15,000 more than his previous position. The financial stress of the search had been manageable. The freelance income had covered essentials during months 3 and 4. His emergency fund was down to $3,400 from $6,800. He'd used only $3,400 over 4 months, less than he'd expected. His first priority after the new job started: rebuild the emergency fund.
The layoff had changed Marcus's income philosophy permanently. He continued the freelance work after starting the new job, taking one project per month, roughly $1,000 to $1,500 additional income. That money went directly to investment accounts. His primary salary covered expenses and retirement contributions. The freelance income was a separate stream, entirely invested, never touched for living expenses, building his investment accounts faster than his budget alone could.
The goal of multiple income streams isn't luxury, it's resilience. One income stream can disappear overnight. 2 streams, you survive on the other while rebuilding the lost one. 3 streams, a loss is an inconvenience, not a crisis. The wealthy don't have more because they earn more from one source. They have more because they've built multiple sources that compound simultaneously, and the loss of any single one doesn't threaten the whole.
Marcus's income picture 2 years after the layoff: primary salary $67,000, freelance consulting $12,000 to $15,000 per year, dividend income from his taxable investment account $430 per year and growing, high-yield savings interest $310 per year, total income approximately $80,000 from 4 sources. His former single-employer income had become the largest of 4 streams. The others were small, but they existed, they were growing, and none of them could be ended with a 30-minute Zoom call.
Elena's income streams at the same point: primary freelance client income $52,000, Etsy templates $5,400 per year, stock dividends $180 per year, SEP IRA growth $9,000 invested, growing tax-deferred. She had 3 active income sources and 1 growing passive income stream. The Etsy revenue, built in 2 weekends, had compounded to $5,400 per year. 2 weekends of effort, running indefinitely.
The concept of financial independence, building enough passive income to cover your essential living expenses without requiring active work, is the destination that all of these streams point toward. It doesn't require becoming a millionaire overnight. It requires building each stream deliberately, reinvesting returns, and allowing time to compound the result. At $2,000 per month in essential expenses, $24,000 per year in passive income is financial independence.
Julian introduced me to the concept of the financial independence number, sometimes called FI number. Your annual essential expenses multiplied by 25. If I needed $36,000 per year to cover my essentials, my FI number is $900,000. At that balance, withdrawing 4% per year produces $36,000, mathematically sustainable indefinitely based on historical market performance. Financial independence isn't a fantasy number. It's a calculable target.
Marcus calculated his FI number for the first time. Essential monthly expenses $1,900, annual $22,800, FI number $570,000. At his current investment rate and 8% average return, he'd reach $570,000 approximately at age 48, 22 years away. Not retirement, he wanted to keep working. But financial independence, the point at which work becomes a choice, not a requirement. The number had a timeline, the timeline was real.
The full financial picture Marcus had built over 3 years: emergency fund 6 months of expenses, credit score 741, built from 618, Roth IRA and 401k fully funded annually, debt eliminated, credit card, medical collection, car paid off, side income diversified, investments allocated correctly across tax-advantaged accounts, home buying fund growing, insurance coverage complete. This was not wealthy. This was financially literate, the foundation for everything that follows.
Financial literacy is not a destination, it's a capability. Marcus didn't arrive somewhere. He developed the ability to understand financial decisions, evaluate options, avoid the most common traps, and make deliberate choices about money that aligned with his actual goals. That capability doesn't expire. It doesn't stop working. It compounds because every correct financial decision makes the next one more powerful.
I think about the person I was 3 years ago, the one who didn't know what a Roth IRA was, who had $400 in savings and thought that was fine, who had never read his employee benefits guide, who was one car repair away from a debt spiral. That person wasn't careless. He just hadn't been taught. The information was always available. The vocabulary was public, but nobody had handed it to him in a way that connected to his actual life.
The financial education gap in America is real and consequential. High schools in most states don't require personal finance courses. College doesn't teach budgeting or tax-advantaged accounts. The information is freely available, but you have to know to look for it, know what to look for, and have someone translate the complexity into actionable steps. Julian had been that person for Marcus. Marcus was becoming that person for others.
Marcus started hosting a monthly financial conversation with friends, nothing formal, just dinner and discussion. He talked about the 401k match he'd been leaving behind, about credit utilization, about emergency funds, about the Roth IRA income limits. 3 of his friends opened Roth IRAs within a month of that first dinner. One friend captured $3,200 in employer 401k match she'd been missing for 4 years. The knowledge multiplied.
Marcus's mother fully vested in her employer's 401k match over the 3 years following their phone call. The added contribution and employer match, $4,800 per year combined invested in a target date fund, had grown to $16,400, not a fortune, but $16,400 that didn't exist before a single phone call. 12 years from her retirement, compound interest was working. Late, but working.
Julian's final principle, delivered over coffee on a cold February morning. Wealth is not about how much you earn. It's about the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and what you do with that gap consistently over time. I've known people earning $200,000 per year with nothing saved, and people earning $60,000 per year on track for a comfortable retirement. The salary is almost irrelevant. The system is everything.
The system Marcus had built: spend less than he earned, save before spending, use tax-advantaged accounts before taxable ones, invest in low-cost index funds and hold, build an emergency fund before building wealth, understand credit and manage it deliberately, diversify income, calculate the FI number and track progress toward it. Not a complex system, not a secret. A series of simple, boring, consistent decisions compounding over time.
3 years ago, money was something that happened to me. Bills appeared. Paychecks appeared. The gap was always smaller than I expected. I reacted. Now money is something I manage, deliberately, proactively. Not perfectly, I still make mistakes, still learn things I didn't know, but the direction is chosen, not accidental. That shift from reactive to intentional is the entire game. And it starts with understanding what you're doing and why.
New York City didn't get cheaper. Rent still climbed. The gap between what a person earns and what a dignified life costs in this city remained brutal. None of that changed. What changed was Marcus's relationship to that reality, not passive acceptance, not anxious resignation, but active strategy. He couldn't control the cost of the city. He could control his response to it. And his response, over 3 years of small, consistent decisions, had built something real.
Julian asked me once, "What was the first thing you bought with money you actually understood?" I said, "A laptop, $800 with money I'd saved deliberately from a budget I'd built myself without going into debt, without stress. $800 I'd planned for and earned and saved." He laughed and said, "That's it, that's the whole thing." I didn't get it then. I get it now. Financial freedom doesn't start with $1 million. It starts with the first purchase you make with money you actually control.